Anyway, Todd, tell us about not Toy Story 4, which we reviewed a long time ago. Inside Out 2. So I got the wrong sequel. The sequels got messed up.
Okay. Well, Inside Out 2 is directed by Kelsey Mann.
Leslie Mann.
That would have been interesting. Kelsey Mann is a Pixar person, and the movie was an absolute smash at the box office. Did you see the number?
I did not.
155 million opening, which is insane considering Elemental made less than 30.
So if Furiosa had been a Pixar movie, maybe that would have saved it.
Yeah, it absolutely would have. But yeah, so the Inside Out 2, the sequel to the movie from 9 years ago, which I think we all loved. It was in my top 10 of that year. Riley is still played by Kensington Tallman, and she's now a teenager, and she's this killer junior high hockey player, and she's just hitting puberty. She has her two best friends, Grace and Bree. They're invited with her to this prestigious hockey camp, but Riley is going through all the changes that come with being that age. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust are all back, with Liza Lapira and Tony Hale taking over for the latter two, and Amy Poehler, Lewis Black, and Phyllis Smith reprising their roles. The new emotions that pop up, the puberty ones, and try to take over the headquarters in Riley's mind and cause a whole bunch of chaos. Anxiety is Maya Hawke, and she tries to be like the new Joy and be like in control all the time. Envy is played by Ayo Edebiri, of course, because she's in everything. Adele Exarchopoulos is Ennui, and that's pretty funny. And Paul Walter Hauser is evidently embarrassment, even though he doesn't really talk out of embarrassment. And June Squibb is Nostalgia, which is a funny little bit. She just keeps popping her head in the door. Riley is sort of forced to choose between being like the best hockey player she can be or just being herself. And the emotions are doing everything they can to make sure that Riley makes the right choices, while anxiety is just creating stress in everybody. And it's rare for Pixar movies to focus on an actual human person, at least not a child, and or like a baby or something. And this is a lot more about Riley than the first one was. There's a lot about like hockey and everything she's going through, and it's pretty engaging to watch. The animation, I think, is beautiful. These movies are a lot more deep than they need to be. They say so much about like the human experience and what it looks like to have and feel a panic attack, and what it's like to go through painfully awkward, embarrassing moments, and times when you know that your decision is going to kind of shape the rest of your life, or at least as far as you can see the rest of your life going at that age. And they really have thought of everything, like the brainstorms, the sarcasm, the back of the mind. Like these things are really intriguing and really interesting ideas. It's all pretty brilliant, and the movie is relatable. It's not necessarily all that funny, which isn't, I guess, the worst thing, because it just keeps you more engaged in the character development. But this is as Toy Story at its core as any movie that Pixar's done. Like the emotions and the toys are like think that they are everything to their human, and they slowly realize that when you get to a certain age, you don't need those things as much. And that self-realization, not just in the person, but in the other characters as well, is sort of what is the draw of the movie. Something about the ending of the movie didn't exactly click for me. It was emotional and everything, but I wasn't entirely satisfied with it. The new emotions, I think, are more compelling characters than the old emotions, and we just spend too much time on this like weird quest in the mind with the old emotions. And the redemption arc is a little weird. It's a little corny and unnecessarily, but I think that is the only thing that really holds it back for me in like a really great Pixar movie. But there's obviously a lot of love that goes into this. Like it does fall into the same trap as a lot of Pixar sequels, like other than the Toy Story ones, I guess. But it tries to recreate the magic while also trying to reinvent at the same time. It brings in new characters, but you spend too much time with the old characters. It has the same kind of things as like Finding Dory and Monsters University. It's a little better than those, but it's not quite up to the Pixar movies or the Toy Story movies in the Pixar canon. So I'm giving it 3 stars. It's probably in the middle to bottom middle maybe of the Pixar rankings, but I mean, it totally is worth it, and I like that it is a return to box office glory for the best studio in the world.
Nice. Well, I knew you were going to like the movie because I think you have a very big soft spot for Pixar. You're the only person in the world who loved Elemental, although I think you might dispute that, but not a whole lot of people like that movie. And we all like Turning Red on this podcast. We all like Luca. So I was prepared to go into this movie a little bit feisty. I think sequels are lame, except if it's Spider-Man Spider-Verse. We've also had some really fun debates on this year podcast about animated films, like the Spider-Verse movie, like Elemental, and like The Boy and the Heron. So I was kind of thinking, okay, let's spice things up a little bit. And, another cash grab by Disney, and Pixar is not quite, they're not the level at this point of Laika or Ghibli or what these other state-of-the-art animation studios are doing, or even Sony. It's a lame movie. I can't do it. I was absolutely won over by this movie. This movie is positively charming and wonderful. First of all, it goes back to the original, all right? The original was so great at visualizing what a world inside a child's brain would look like. And it just had some great attributes to it. I can't deny watching this movie that those emotions of joy and sadness and disgust and fear, those would probably graduate into something more sophisticated as you mature and as you grow into an adult. So my kind of questioning about why this movie existed in the first place, it's just a naked cash grab. No, it's not. These emotions that come into this movie, like anxiety and like envy and embarrassment and ennui, who's my favorite, by the way, not surprising. Adele should be, this is way better than Haley Steinfeld's voice acting. Okay, I will give you that. But I loved the new emotions. I think they are, it's sometimes, even with Toy Story 4, like the new characters in it, like the Keanu Reeves race car, I was like, I didn't really care that much. These four are great new characters. I love them. I love, they fit what 13-year-old girl's personality would be really, really well. There are sequences in this movie where the original emotions encounter different characters along the way. And I love the way that Disney even Pixar inserted a little bit of the Spider-Verse sort of look of different animation, because, we've seen it also in like Puss in Boots and a few other movies where you want to show the diversity of animation, different styles. And I love the video game character and the kind of loosely based on Blue's Clues character. That was hilarious. I like the story in this movie. I like that this movie was about puberty, but it wasn't about a first crush. I like that this was a movie that was set at a very specific time in Riley's life, and we still root for her. And it explains, though, why her reactions and why her attitudes can be so unpredictable, because it's just so insane inside of her brain. I think this movie is on par with Turning Red, which I really, really love. And I think they're interesting companion pieces in a lot of ways. This movie, I don't think quite goes to the adult level sensibility of Turning Red, but maybe my favorite thing about Inside Out 2 is I think it's a little bit more mature than the first movie. Like I don't think there's quite as many gags in this movie. It's not also necessarily the story is not as centered on the 5 emotions escaping through the brain as the first movie is. The first movie is a great movie, and it's great because of the world building. This is, I think, a great movie because of the advancement of the world building that was already made in the first. And you're absolutely right, Todd. I mean, the puns that did not work in Elemental, I think work really well here. The brainstorm is hilarious. The stream of consciousness. Maybe my favorite part was the part where anxiety is instructing all those people to draw out her dreams. Did you not think that looked a little bit like the Encore Sportsbook? I mean, just be honest. There's a little bit of like the sportsbook look with all the different screens and the people scribbling on it. I expected probably to smell like cigarettes. Ennui is my favorite character. I wish there were more of her in the movie. I'm surprised she also wasn't. Does Adele Exarchopoulos have the same voice as Isabelle Huppert? I think so, but I think it works really, really well. Ennui is like every single teenager today who's on their phone just needlessly. So I understand that. I wish that they maybe made a connection a little bit more there. The only flaws in the movie that I have are I hear a little bit what you're saying about the climax of the movie. The climax of the first one, which we already talked a little bit about, Riley leaving her parents, abandoning her life versus a hockey tryout. I mean, that's not really balanced in terms of the profundity or the weight of those events in her life. So the first one kind of wins there. And the first one is about the world building too, which is just so fabulous. So I give this one 3.5 stars. I think it's really high level Pixar. This is not a cash grab. This is a really fun movie that makes you really think about how anxiety influences not just teenagers, but people in general. Maya Hawke's voice acting as anxiety is terrific, and I love the way the character looks. Great character designs, all the typical animation quirks that you would expect from first-rate Pixar. I wanted to go into this movie in a fighting attitude. I wanted to be hostile. I can't. It won me over pretty much right away, and I think it's really, really fun stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, the voice acting's good because I couldn't really place anybody's voice, especially the new characters. Like I would have never guessed that was Adele Exarchopoulos. I would have never guessed that was Maya Hawke, and I couldn't even really recognize Adabiri's voice, and which I think is, I mean, and even Tony Hale. Like I mean, that didn't sound like Tony Hale. Like I mean, Tony Hale is Forky. Like there was no Tony Hale in that, but I mean, I think it's great that they fit their character so much that they get lost that much in it.
Yeah, and it was not a big deal to me to not have Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling back. And I mean, that was great in the first movie. This is a different movie. I like that the filmmakers took this in a different direction. And it wasn't just another repeat of a young Riley. And, the first one, it had the jokes, at the end of the movie where it goes into the cat's brain and the boyfriend's brain. By the way, you could never do this movie about a 13-year-old boy because every single emotion would just be ennui, right? Or it would be that part in the first movie when they're all skateboarding around. So this is a very female movie. I don't even think there's any male brains that it goes into except for the dad, and his brain is all just checked out as usual, which is really funny. By the way, this is the dad.
Sounds about right.
The dad in real life. The dad would be played by Ethan Hawke, right? I mean, Ethan Hawke's maybe a little bit too old, but maybe Ethan Hawke like 10 years ago. Like, there's a little bit of like boyhood Ethan Hawke in that character, just a tiny bit.
Who's the voice of the dad?
Kyle Chandler, I think. I went through this whole movie thinking that Maude Apatow did the voice of
Kyle MacLachlan.
Riley. Kyle MacLachlan. Oh, interesting. I messed up my Kyles. But anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I hear your criticism of it. I find it hard to believe that anyone wouldn't actually like this movie unless they went into it really not wanting to like it, because it's just so charming and funny and very creative and virtually all of its execution.
Well, see, then like negative reviews that I've seen have focused on things that you normally do, which is like focusing on what it doesn't do rather than what it does do. Like, oh, I think the only thing we wanted to see from this movie was like her sex drive and like and her PMS or something.
That would be Inside Out 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, but
R-rated version.
But that's like the level of intellect that's going into these reviews. So I mean, yeah, I mean, this should be pretty much universally loved.
I think that was a backhanded insult to me, but I like it. And I will just say that, yes, I guess normally I do pick and choose my critiques. But what I like about this one is that it's really relatable whether you're a teenager or an adult. And I also really like, and I kind of said this earlier, I kind of really like that this movie is probably more appropriate for like 13 to 14-year-olds than like 7 to 8-year-olds. 7 to 8-year-olds are going to watch this movie, but there's going to be a lot that probably goes over their head. And this is what I also thought Turning Red did so well is that it kind of avoided being like a family movie. In a way, it's a more adult movie. It's probably more of a coming of age movie than it is a family movie. I also could make the argument this is a hockey movie. I think it is about the mindset of being a hockey player. I don't know if it's quite on the level of Slapshot or D2 The Mighty Ducks, but I think it certainly enters the conversation in at least notable
third
hockey
Mighty
movies.
Ducks.
There's quite a bit about hockey. I feel like there was some icing that happened in the story. I'm again, I don't really know hockey rules that well, but yes, I don't know. Hockey tryouts. Have you ever been to a hockey tryout? I don't know if that actually happened.
Well, I mean, I do also live on the West Coast. Like a junior high girls hockey in California just seems like it
was
probably doesn't exist. But I don't know. I mean, but this is what Pixar's been doing lately. Is like they've been making their movies progressively more and more like for adults and not for children. So like something like Soul was never going to be a kids movie, but they do have those kind of things. Elemental, I think, other than the character designs, aren't really appealing to kids. And this, I feel like a lot of you can relate to it probably if you were that age, but I think people like our age who can look back and like remember what it was like at that age, it's like, yeah, that checks out. That checks out. And then even like the adult characters that you're just like, it's like, yeah, that's pretty much the way that I would look at that at this point. I just think that they're in a fascinating spot where, I mean, you could still by their animation style appeal to little children, but now it's like, I mean, you really can appreciate it at any age.
Yes, I agree. And we don't know what the future is for Pixar, but if they want to resuscitate the iconic characters, they should do it in this way, where it's not just the same characters in the same story, but a character maybe actually growing older. They don't necessarily have to be a teenager, but realizing different themes in life. And I don't know, I'm sure that a lot of 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds have envy, but I think anxiety is a really good teenage age. And I feel like ennui is a perfect age for your 20s. Like, let's get the Richard Linklater version of ennui in Inside Out 3.
Well, see, that's what I was saying before, though, is like, this is one of the only times that the main character in the movie is not like a creature, an animal, or a small child. So, I mean, like in Toy Story, you can't have Andy continuously playing with his toys when he's in his 20s. So, like, you had to reset and go back and give the toys to a child. But I mean, I think that you could continue following Riley and like keep with these emotions as she gets older. I mean, I think it'd be like amazing in 10 years if we saw Riley in college or something and see what
the Richard Linklater, like. Michael Apted version of Inside Out 3. I like it. Let's do it.
Streetwise.
Exactly.
All right. Well, to recap, I gave it 3 stars. I mean, it's a solid 3 stars. Zach gave it 3.5 stars. I find it hard to think that anyone's not going to like this movie. Like I said, monster hit at the box office, the biggest opening of the year by far. And more power to them. I mean, Pixar continues to do it.